this, what is the stance of the U.S. in buying Russian gas at this point? At this point, are we ready to pledge not to buy any more Russian gas?
Well, as you know, it's really, let me give you actually kind of an update on this, because I think there's been a little confusion. One moment. So as it relates to Russian gas, U.S. government doesn't dictate where the U.S. market sells our own oil and gas products, nor where it acquires crude or refined products for domestic consumption. This is all up to the private sector, other than exceptions like countries under sanctions.
So, can you just explain, though, what you laid out at the beginning? Because I'm a little bit unclear. You just in layman's terms, we are not going to be making any policy from the U.S. government that would prohibit the sale or the purchase of Russian gas, then, because it's not something that we already do?
We haven't ruled out that, but I think what I wanted to convey is what is accurate about what happens now and how it currently works. Happy Monday, State of the Union Eve, shall we say?
Administration officials earlier today had a background briefing with reporters about the State of the Union coming up. Can you tell us a little bit more? We understood from the call that the president will be addressing elements of the Build Back Better plan when it comes to things like childcare and paid family leave. And officials talked about how those things, if implemented, will lower costs for families, but they were hesitant to use the word inflation or say whether that would be addressed directly in the president's speech. So can you say whether the president will be addressing any new policies, not necessarily new domestic programs, but policies that would address inflation directly?
Well, first let me say the president will absolutely use the word inflation tomorrow, and he will talk about inflation in his speech. Of course, that is a huge issue on the minds of Americans. Now, one thing to note is one of the best, most important steps that the Senate could take is to confirm his slate of eminently qualified nominees to fill out the Federal Reserve Board, given they have a very important role as it relates to inflation. But I think what you will hear the president talk about, and I think this is what they were talking about on this call, is how we're going to address costs for the American people and lower costs. And we talk a lot about inflation in here. Economists talk about inflation. The Federal Reserve talks about inflation. Hugely important. How people experience it is what it means for their pocketbooks, for their budgets, for their bank accounts, and how they're paying for things. And that's why a lot of what you're going to hear about tomorrow as he talks about it is how he's going to reduce costs. Now, the Build Back, parts of his agenda that he has talked about significantly a lot over the course of the last several months, lowering
on what you were saying about addressing lowering costs for families. The president has been encouraging Congress to pass at least elements or his entire Build Back Better agenda for months. Congress has been negotiating for months. What gives the president any confidence that this time around things would be more likely to pass, given that we are just months out from midterm elections?
Because there is strong support across the country for lowering costs for prescription drugs. It's incredibly popular. Who wants to pay more for prescription drugs? I don't know why that gets to be a Democratic idea, but we're happy to own that one. Or for lowering the cost of childcare, for lowering the cost of elder care and health care. There's also strong support for those items and those priorities and those good ideas in the Senate among Senate Democrats. So he's going to keep pressing to get it done, and he thinks the American people want us to get it done. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen, the first time tomorrow night.
Well, here's what I will tell you, having been through a few State of the Unions in the past, and I know you have as well. They don't get longer, they get shorter. Nobody wants a 2 or 3 hour State of the Union. I don't think anyone in here does. So I just don't want to preview more at this point in time. You can certainly expect to hear him talk about some call on Congress to send bills to his desk that deliver progress on ideas that have historically been supported by Democrats and Republicans. Some of those are economic, and some of those are in other areas that could just impact and help communities across the country. And you will certainly hear him call, as you touched on, for a continued effort, a redoubling of the effort to move forward on steps that will reduce costs for the American people. Well, and you're referring to the IOC as in the International Olympic Committee, and I don't know if it's FIFA or FIFA. FIFA. Okay. I tried to be soft there. Okay. FIFA. Look, I think Amr obviously.
In a government panel on climate change, released kind of a major unprecedented report with lots of warnings today, and said some places in the world have basically maxed out their capacity to adapt to climate change, while others soon will. I'm curious, Joe Manchin offered kind of a slimmed down BBB version with $555 billion for climate. Will the administration be pressing Democrats to at least move on that portion of climate change in light of the recent developments in this recent report?
Well, I would say first, the president agrees absolutely that we need to do more. That is why that he has been such an advocate for historic levels of investment in addressing our climate crisis. And if we had had 50 votes to move that forward, we would have done that, right? So there are ongoing discussions, of course. They are happening a lot on the Hill between members on the Hill. The president remains committed to moving that forward. I would also note that part of what was in that report was the need to bolster adaptation efforts that increase our resilience to the impacts of climate change. And and a couple of pieces that the president has already done, he launched an emergency plan for adaptation and resilience, a whole of government response to help more than 500 million people in developing countries adapt to and manage the impacts of climate change.